Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm peeking out my window to watch this neighbor drama unfold. Am I the a-hole for exposing my toxic neighbor's double life, ruining her engagement, and cutting her off after years of manipulation? Do tell. All rise for the Honorable Judge Charlotte. Presiding. All of these stories are from the Charlotte Dobre YouTube subreddit. This is a story I've shared parts of before in this group. Some of you may recognize pieces of it, but here's the full version. It's a long one, so brace yourselves. Everybody strap in. Going for a bumpy ride. So let me introduce Arya, 24 female, my ex-friend and next door neighbor. Arya, on the surface, is perfect. In quotations. Perfect. She's tall, fair-skinned, beautiful, the kind of girl people instantly notice. But here's the problem. Arya is a manipulative, narcissistic, victim-playing nightmare. The best kind of nightmare. She always finds a way to make herself the victim, even when she's the one at fault. For a while, when it was all about small things, I tolerated it. But then, last October, everything blew up. The affair with a married man and the insanity that followed. One afternoon, Arya showed up at my house crying hysterically. I was in the middle of my house chores when she suddenly hugged me, sobbing uncontrollably. I thought something serious had happened. Maybe someone hurt her? Maybe there was a tragedy. Nope. She finally said,
I have to tell you something.
And then she dropped a bombshell. She's been having an affair with her boss, a man at least 10 years older than her, married, with 2 kids at home. Okay. She knows that, I'm assuming. Now, you'd think she'd at least admit that this was a mess, but no, she painted it as some sort of tragic love story. According to her, this man told her things like,
I don't love my wife. Being intimate with my wife feels like I'm with a lifeless corpse. I'd leave her for you.
But he didn't, did he? This is the thing about getting involved with someone who's in a relationship. When things go wrong, which they inevitably will, like this will never be like the happy ending that you're picturing it. It will be messy in more ways than one. I'm sorry, but I have no sympathy. Like, I really don't. And Arya, she was actively pushing him to divorce his wife. But here's where it gets even crazier. They had a backup plan. If he couldn't divorce his wife, they planned to have her marry his brother-in-law so Arya could keep seeing him while living in the same house. Who devised this plan? Because this doesn't seem very smart. Oh, you could just marry a spare and cheat on him with me. Perfect! And also couldn't divorce his wife. If he really wanted to divorce his wife, he would. It's not that simple though. Like sometimes when you read all these things, you're like, why don't you just get divorced? It's a lot more complicated than that. Divorces get ugly. They take half of everything you own if you don't have a prenup. Even when you have a prenup, sometimes there's, courts that will say, sorry, this is unconscionable. They owe you, half of everything. That's why you gotta be very careful who you marry. So eventually his wife found out, not surprising. She called Arya, told her to back off, and the guy suddenly stopped talking to her. Now, instead of moving on, Arya brought all this drama into the office. She was making sad faces, throwing tantrums, crying in front of everyone. Okay, this is like a really big problem. I'm sorry. Like, I can just picture this being like, because he's the boss, so she could like essentially say, oh, he had power over me, etc. This is an HR nightmare, I'm just saying. Eventually, her senior manager, who didn't know about the affair, suggested she take a break, but she kept pushing. She'd call the guy at night, text him and his wife, beg him to come back. Things escalated, and one day her boss finally told her to stay home for a month. That's when she ran to my house again, crying like the world was ending. I tried to calm her down, telling her to focus on her exams and take a break as an opportunity to relax, but she refused to let go. Some days she'd be like,
I don't need him.
The next day she'd be sobbing.
I need him back.
It was a cycle of obsession. I understand that maybe she loves the guy. You kind of dug your own grave here, Arya. Nothing good can come from something like this. You got involved with a married man. 9 times out of 10, the married man is going to choose his wife and children. It's just too difficult. Maybe he wants to have his cake and eat it too, and he was saying those things because he wanted to be able to have the affair. But in my view, this dude was never gonna leave his wife. One day, she snapped. He made me cry. I'll ruin his life. See? And that's when I realized I was dealing with someone dangerous. Ooh, no, I simply can't know more. Tell me everything. The serial dating and gold digging phase. To keep her from doing anything crazy, I started taking her out shopping, to dinner, for fun. But one thing I noticed, she never wanted to pay. If I paid, everything was great, but the moment she had to pay, she'd ask for my share later. At the same time, she was juggling 1, trying to get back with her ex from 2021, 2, seeking 2 different guys on the side and hooking up with them, 3, emotionally manipulating a guy in London, pretending they were in a relationship when he had no idea. Yes, she was in a relationship in her head. Ooh, this girl is boy crazy. The hair appointment that started a war. Her bike broke down and she asked to borrow mine. I told her, fine, but I have a hair appointment at 10 a.m. so I need it back by 9:30. She agreed. The next morning, I might be late. I told her I couldn't change my plans and suddenly she exploded. Screaming over text, calling me selfish, saying I never bend for anyone. Ugh, the fact that you live near this person. Ugh. I ignored her, left for my appointment and enjoyed my day. She showed up at my house, banging on my door, screaming and breaking my doorbell. I told her to leave, she refused, and at that moment, I snapped. I slapped her across the face. Oh no. And I wear gemstone rings. That slap left a mark. Fast forward to January 2025, her parents, fed up with her, arranged a marriage for her. And guess what? The guy she chose was one of my old college seniors. He came to visit her house, saw my car, and realized I lived there. Excitedly, he called me. Hey, funny coincidence. I'm marrying someone from your society. When he said Arya's name, I had 2 choices. Save out of it or save my friend from hell. I told him everything.
Spit it out!
I mean, it wasn't your business, but is it really gossiping if you're just warning people? You're just sharing the facts. You saved him. His family hired a private investigator. They found out even more dirt than I knew. The wedding was called off. Arya lost her mind. She blamed me for ruining her life, trashed me in front of everyone, and told people I was jealous of her. Much to be jealous of, babe. Jealous of what? A serial cheater who ruined her own life? So, am I the a-hole for slapping my toxic ex-friend, cutting her off, and telling my friend the truth before he married her? Or should I just have let her continue down her path of destruction? I mean, it would be one thing if you sabotaged it with information that wasn't true. It's an entirely different thing that all you did was tell the truth and warn someone. I mean, I definitely want to know if someone I was about to marry, was in a relationship with a married man, obviously didn't think cheating was a big deal, behaved this way, serial cheater, serial dater. I'd want to know these things. And then if he finds all these things out and he still wants to marry her, then there's no sweat off your back, right? You did what you were supposed to do. And believe me, there are some people who would suck it up and continue dating that person or marrying that person. Not the a-hole for standing up for yourself and saving someone from an absolute nightmare. I don't know about the slap though. Not a fan of actual violence. I tend to agree. I don't usually need to resort to it. FYI, she will continue down her path of destruction probably forever. OP responds, fair enough. I'm not usually one to resort to that either, but she was in full chaos mode and I had to protect myself. As for her, yeah, she's her own worst enemy at this point. It's not that I don't condone violence. I'm kidding. It's just she sounds like she's unhinged, and because you slapped her, that could come back to hurt you. Some people really do need to slap. Really, they do. I think a lot of the world's problem would be solved if you could just slap someone. Hurt you in the future, be charged with assault or whatever. Some people do need a good slap. They do, okay? They do. Doesn't mean you should, but I don't blame you. From a legal sense, we shouldn't be slapping people. From a moral sense as well. So, are you the a-hole for exposing your toxic neighbor's double life, ruining her engagement and cutting off her after years of manipulation? No, but don't slap people, I get it. Violence is never the answer. Moving on. Am I the a-hole for not answering when my next door neighbors rang my doorbell? Next case. Throwaway account because someone mentioned is on here. Oh, okay. On here. Are they in the group? Oh, I love it when the girlies are fighting. I, female 18, live in a somewhat private neighborhood. It's nice, quiet, but not far from town, so I don't feel like I'm living in the middle of nowhere. I and my family, mom, dad, and younger brother 16 and sister 12, moved into this house about 1.5 years ago, after my dad got a promotion, which resulted in him leaving the province for work trips more often. Remember this, or later. Both parents, but more so my dad, have the option of sometimes working from home, only having to go into the office about once a week for my dad and 3 to 4 times every 2 weeks for my mom. When we first moved in, the neighbors living on both sides came to give us a couple of housewarming presents, which consisted of food and baked goods, which my father was especially grateful for so he wouldn't have to do any cooking for the first few days of unpacking. Ooh, so thoughtful. I don't even think he knew which boxes had all the cooking utensils. It was really nice of them, and we became good friends over the next few months. On our left, there's a family of 4. Mom, dad, and 2 brothers aged 12 and 13. On our right is a sweet old couple who've been living in the neighborhood for the past 15 years. Dad from the family of 4 works in oil, so he leaves periodically every 1.5 months. Then has around the same time at home before flying off again to some other remote place around the world. Since the dad makes bank, the mom is a stay-at-home mom. Me and the mom, we'll call her Linda, hit it off immediately. I would go over to their house at least once a week to chat, despite my busy schedule, with it being my last year in high school. Whenever Linda needed to run an errand, I would watch the boys free of charge, which wasn't too bad as they were generally well raised, though the younger one somewhat had a hard time listening to instructions. When they got a new puppy, I voluntarily dog sat him and took him out for walks. Oh, you're being quite nice. But I mean, they were also really nice to you. This is like the way neighbors should treat each other. The younger brother, who we'll call James, could be a bit rough with the puppy, and despite my request for him to be gentle with it as it was still young, James refused, and I eventually had to bring it up with Linda as I was getting concerned. She had a talk with him, and the rough behavior ceased. 4 days ago, I was alone in my house, which was nice because my family can be quite loud sometimes, and it can get overwhelming. I was studying for an upcoming exam in language and literature, which is my worst subject. Safe to say, I was stressed. Headphones on. I didn't realize the doorbell was ringing until I saw James out of the corner of my eye out the window as my room faces the front of the house. However, when I went to answer the door, no one was there. Confused, I chalked it up to pre-exam stress, making me see things, and went back to studying. 10 minutes later, the bell rang again. This time, as I answered the door, I could see someone running around the side of my car to hide behind it, which was pointless because I could see through the windshield to the back window where 2 heads were visible. I left the door a crack open and walked barefoot around my car where I found James and another boy I recognized but didn't know the name of. He was the grandson of the old couple, same age as James, whose parents often visited the mom's parents. Caught, the boys gave me sheepish looks. Well, they playing ding dong ditch. What is that, Nicky Nicky Nine Doors? There's one where you kind of like light a bag of shit on fire and then ring the doorbell. What's that? Never played that, just heard about it. I asked them if he could please not ring the bell if he didn't need anything as I was trying to study. They gave me nods and ran off. Slightly annoyed, I went back inside and continued where I left off. 5 minutes later, my doorbell went off again, this time twice in quick succession. Not even bothering to get up, I opened the window and asked them to please stop with the continuous ringing, but they laughed and ran off. 5 minutes later, the bell rang again. I decided to be the bigger person and ignore them, reasoning that if I didn't give them any attention, they would get bored after a while and find something else to do. Nope. 10 minutes later, the bell rang for what it felt like the millionth time, but it was over and over and over again. I counted to 8 before I decided to being the bigger person. And I sent Linda a long, passionate, and detailed text about the boy's antics. James's older brother, Andy, came to fetch him as Linda had some serious words to say. Feeling satisfied, I went back to studying, thinking the problem was dealt with. Wrong. Tell me why, 2 days later, I have an angry woman I've never spoken to before show up at my house demanding to speak with me. Turns out it was the mother of the other boy, who we'll call Tony. When Linda heard of what the boys were doing, she informed Tony's grandparents of his behavior, who in turn told his mom, their granddaughter. Grandparents were upset because they know how overwhelmed I've been over the past few weeks with exams, and told Tony's mom she should have a talk with Tony about his inconsiderate behavior. But the mom brushed it off and said it wasn't that serious because he was just a kid and didn't know any better. Okay, so then teach him how to be better. See, this is the thing about, oh, he didn't know any better. Okay, discipline him and then he will know better. He's not gonna know better unless you teach him better. Well, Tony's grandparents didn't like that and have been giving their daughter the cold shoulder for the rest of their stay. The mom in turn came to have a little chat with me, insisting I tell her parents Tony never did anything wrong, and that it was all James who was pestering me, which of course I refused. She got angry and started to yell before my mom went all mama bear and kicked her out of the house. Thanks, Mom. This is very dumb. When she lost access to me, she got my number through Tony, who got my number through James, and began spam texting me at all hours of the day about how I was an awful person, harassing me so much I blocked her number as I was so done with all of this. Pot, meet kettle. Somehow, I think I get where little Tony gets his behavioral issues from. It makes sense. So, am I the a-hole? P.S. My dad not being home was important because the boys knew not to ring the doorbell more than once, as my dad has a lot of meetings at home. Since my dad passed away, they reasoned the prank was harmless. I feel like this is really dumb. Like, it's almost like the mom feels like she's in trouble and now she wants to cause mischief. Like, I don't know. This is really silly. I would expect it from a young kid, but not a grown-ass woman. Not the a-hole. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The kid deserved the blasting he got. You've been respectful, asking repeatedly for them to stop. They didn't. If this mom was a little better about teaching her kid how to respect people, this conversation never needed to happen. And granted, kids act out sometimes. They do. But when they do, you can't just let them do whatever they want. They need repercussions for doing bad things because otherwise they will continue to do bad things. That's how society works. That's why there's things like jail. There are disciplinary measures that are taken when people do not behave. Not saying you need to send this little kid to jail, but discipline is a normal thing. And if she's not gonna do it, then you should. Not hard to see where little Tony gets his obnoxious entitlement. I said this too. Makes sense, doesn't it? So are you the a-hole for not answering when your next door neighbor rang your doorbell? No. In fact, I rarely answer my door. So maybe I'm just projecting. Not a fan of answering the door, especially when there's an election happening. Oh God. Anyone in Canada, up until recently, thank God it's over. But man, they do be coming to your house at all hours. I don't answer. I like put the blinds down and like don't answer. Am I the a-hole for not letting my neighbor's granddaughter participate in my autistic son's Easter egg hunt? Hi, Charlotte and Mike. Watched you forever and adore you guys. Oh, hello. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful wedding and life together. My 30 female and my husband's 32 male oldest son is 3. We have an 8-week-old infant. He's also level 2 autistic. He can communicate a little, but sometimes it takes some sleuthing to figure out what he's saying. So it's hard for him to tell him when he doesn't like something. Being autistic, it's hard for my son to participate in group activities. He normally will sit off to the side and watch everyone else play. It can sometimes take up to a week for him to feel comfortable participating with other kids. And this is only if he's seen those kids every single day, let alone random children he's never met. It's Easter, and I wanted my son to not have a repeat of last year. We took him to an Easter egg hunt, and when he tried to participate, his eggs were taken from older kids. Absolutely not. We ride at dawn for your son. I have some mini eggs. I bought some. Does he want them? Of course he does. Who doesn't want a mini egg? Have you ever heard someone ever say no to a mini egg? It doesn't happen. It's inconceivable. I got you mini eggs. Being autistic and 2 at the time, he didn't know how to react, so he stood there and let them do what they wanted. I was livid. Not only that a child would take something someone else had, but that the parents did nothing about it. I scooped him up and we went to get a special treat. This year, I decided to set up his own special Easter egg hunt. There were a bunch of eggs with treats and toys inside them, and little pretend bunnies hiding around under the trees and bushes. Oh, that's sweet. I decorated our trees and used environmentally friendly silly string that degrades when it rains, which my husband made himself, the whole 9 yards. I wanted to not only make up for last year, but make this year something really special. Skip to the main event. My yard is fully decked out, and we bring my son outside. He's so excited. He sees all the bunnies and first is going around to all the bunnies to say hi. That is so precious. He always does this with animals, real or not. While he's running around and enjoying himself, not looking for eggs yet, but we weren't in a rush. This is his time to enjoy how he pleases. Our neighbor's granddaughter runs over and is excited to look for eggs as she runs and starts collecting them. For reference, we don't have a fence separating our yards. I know she's only 2, so I don't blame her at all for being excited, but this was my son's time. I asked her grandmother if she could please come and get her, as this was private for my son. She looked at me like I had 3 heads. She goes,
What? Why would I do that? You clearly set this up for kids.
seriously? Even if she set it up for kids, it's a little rude to assume that a neighborhood kid could participate without asking.
Why would all of this effort be put in for just one child?
Because he deserves it, okay? This is a special circumstance.
She's 2, let her have fun.
ignoring the fact that she completely disregarded my request. I decided to explain to her why we were doing this. I told her my son is autistic. He has trouble participating in large group activities like big Easter egg hunts, so we did this for him to have his own. She looks at me and goes,
It's just one other kid. What's the problem? What, is he gonna have an attack?
she used air quotes,
Because someone else is doing his activity? Is he that spoiled? You can obviously just put the eggs back after she finds them all.
okay, this neighbor is hella entitled. I don't know why I'm getting so irate over an Easter egg hunt, but like, this is super annoying. Again, ignoring her blatant rudeness because I didn't want to cause a scene in front of my child and her granddaughter. They don't need to see adults fighting over what is supposed to be a fun day. I told her, firstly, my son doesn't have attacks. He's autistic and gets overstimulated. Secondly, because he's autistic and only 3, he doesn't know when something is and isn't okay, like someone taking something from him. This is why he did this, so he doesn't have anyone to take anything from him and can go at his own pace. Okay, so I can understand her kind of being like a little bit like, what the can't you just let her play? But after hearing that your child has special needs, she should have backed off, genuinely. Or she should have let your son play with the eggs first, and then her granddaughter can play with them later, if you're okay with it. She looked at me like I just kicked her dog.
You think my granddaughter is going to do something like take things from him? My daughter raised her right. Don't you dare insinuate that she didn't.
I mean, you kind of are saying that you're totally fine with her participating in someone else's, like, you're okay with her going and finding Easter eggs that are not meant for her. So she kind of is already doing that. And by the way, she's doing it too. It's kind of like letting another kid open someone else's birthday present.
She has so many.
At this point, I'm getting pissed. I told her I'm done arguing. This is my property, my money used to do this for my kid, and you need to get your granddaughter and leave, please, now. Period, queen. She grabbed her granddaughter by the arm and told her, come on, this woman doesn't want you to have any fun. How about you let your granddaughter have some fun by doing your own Easter egg hunt for her? Why do you need to piggyback off of someone else's Easter egg hunt? Damn. Pulling her away and grabbing the egg she collected out of her hand, she threw it back behind them, hitting my son in the back. I was going to let her keep what she collected because 1, I'm not heartless, but 2, I had a lot more I could replace it with. Us autistic moms always know to have extra just in case something gets broken. I checked on my son, made sure he was okay because he doesn't process pain normally, another trait of his autism, and he was fine. It was a plastic egg and couldn't do much damage. But when I tell you I was about to throttle this woman, that's an understatement. You have a lot of patience. Raising an autistic child, you do need a lot of patience. The fact that some parents really just don't get it, like she just like clearly doesn't understand or doesn't respect what you go through on a day-to-day basis. I think under the circumstances, it's totally fine for you to have this boundary. And at the end of the day, that's your property. And that little girl was not invited. It might seem kind of rude, but who cares? Be rude. I know young kids see fun things and everything is background noise. I'm not saying the little kid, it's her fault. But if you set a boundary and you say, listen, like this isn't for her, then the grandmother needs to respect that. I do not blame the young girl at all. However, now my son was sitting on the grass, confused about what was happening and didn't want anything to do with the eggs. Thankfully, after about an hour, he got excited again and we did his Easter egg hunt. So he still got what I wanted for him. So I'm wondering, was I an a-hole for not letting the granddaughter participate? Should I have sucked it up and let her have fun? I think at the end of the day, you were trying to do something nice for your kid. Under these circumstances, you kind of predicted what would have happened. Like, yeah, you could have and then made that decision to like not, if you saw that he wasn't participating because she was doing it. But at the same time, it's also the way that the grandmother kind of spoke to you.
Annoyingly.
Like, I wouldn't want to do anything for someone like that either. You should always ask the parent if they don't mind sharing like cake or presents or cookies and whatever, okay? You should always ask the parent if it's okay. And if it's not okay, it might be a little bit annoying, not gonna lie, especially if it's something as simple as letting a kid find an Easter egg. I think under these circumstances, who cares? Just let him have his Easter egg hunt. She's not entitled to your front yard. Not the a-hole that grandmother sounds super entitled. You think my granddaughter would take things from him? Yes, she's literally taking things as they speak. I'd have been pointing out the grandmother is allowing the kid to steal what doesn't belong to her and making her a terrible example for anyone alive. I think that there also needs to be a certain degree of making sure your kids know that they have permission to do stuff like that. Imagine this little girl runs into someone's yard that's like a total creep that's like setting up all these little Easter eggs to like lure children, or like, you know, there's a van and he's got all these pop popsicles and you can't just go up to something because it's colorful and assume that it's yours and you can take it. Are you the a-hole for not letting your neighbor's granddaughter participate in my autistic son's Easter egg hunt? I mean, to her, you're probably an a-hole, but no, you're fine. Do you still want mini eggs? I have some.